Tonight, Nyrstar fail a $20 million repayment and allegations of water theft from irrigators upstream.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Casey Treelaw begins now.
Good evening. Port Pirie smelter owner Nyrstar has failed to pay a $20 million repayment towards its $291 million loan. The multinational corporation has missed the March deadline negotiated between the company and the state government.
Nyrstar's finances balancing delicately on a knife's edge. The company again failing to pay back its first instalment of a taxpayer-backed loan.
We've missed the deadline or the date that we're aiming for. We're now going to do the next best thing, we hope, and conclude some sort of a discussion as soon as we can.
Internationally, the company has deferred paying coupons on some of its bonds. Their financial woes span back to 2009, when the company made a poorly timed expansion into the mining sector.
And they're trying to conclude discussions with other bankers and financiers around the world. So the longer it goes without a resolution to our discussions, the more difficult it makes it for them.
Despite Nyrstar reneging on its March deadline, the state government is staying cautiously optimistic.
Nyrstar International, obviously, we all know they've had some financial struggles across the international market, but I know from my observation here, this plant here is going to be world class.
Jeff Brock, the architect behind Port Pirie's redevelopment, remains steadfast in his belief the smelter has a glimmering future.
Once it is up and running fully, it'll be a lifeline for Port Pirie and the surrounding areas for many, many years to come.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Police are appealing for help to catch a suspect involved in a crime spree in Whyalla last Saturday. It's alleged 4 men in a black Holden Commodore stole petrol from a Playford Avenue fuel station and used a sledgehammer on a nearby motel. They then allegedly broke into a Norrie Avenue business, stealing power tools before smashing their way into a Whyalla Stewart's supermarket. Searches of properties on Sunday and Tuesday recovered a black Holden Commodore along with power tools. CCTV at one of the break-ins captured the suspect wearing a grey hoodie and black pants.
And that's why it's really important that if someone identifies the person on the CCTV that they call Crime Stoppers.
A 31-year-old man has already been arrested. Member for Frome Jeff Brock has singled out Police Minister Corey Wingard for failing to run the state's successful Crime Stoppers campaign. Last week it was announced Crime Stoppers had resorted to raising their own money through a GoFundMe campaign. Mr Brock saying he's appalled at the current state of funding.
For this organisation to have to go out and raise funds publicly to continue on, I think it's an utter embarrassment to the government, and I am writing to the Minister. I'll be talking to the Minister in Parliament this week.
Crime Stoppers has been successful in solving more than 32,000 cases since it was initiated more than 20 years ago. The mayors of the Upper Spencer Gulf are calling on all sides of government to adopt strong national energy policies ahead of the election. They say such strategies would allow the region's renewables to thrive into the future. Garth Burley has the details.
With the Upper Spencer Gulf positioned as the nation's renewable energy hub, the region's leaders say it's time to capitalise, calling for a strong and evidence-based federal energy policy.
We want the investors to be confident and comfortable that where they're going is going to be a success story.
They want to see all sides of government deliver a policy which benefits the region, lowering prices and improving reliability while also reducing emissions.
Knowing that there's a policy set that they can all work by and go through, that gives the investors confidence.
Rowan Ramsey says last week's announcement by the government to underwrite 4 hydro and gas projects in Grey, as well as a new push towards battery storage, will be a step towards improving reliability of the energy network.
And that's exactly what we need to firm up our power supply.
The 3 mayors from the Upper Spencer Gulf are currently in Canberra for the regional summit, lobbying all politicians on what they say are urgent concerns for the future on energy.
The State Civil Contractors Federation has lashed out at the federal government for not including the Augusta Highway duplication in its budget allocation. Despite South Australia enjoying $2.6 billion for road upgrades, the Federation says it beggars belief the state's most critical regional freight route wasn't included.
Being transport and truck reliant, it's really important that those roads are maintained.
But Rowan Ramsey says it would be a long-term project.
I think we're dealing with those roads that need the attention most first, and that is as we should do.
The Horrocks Highway was one of those included in the budget, receiving $44 million for an upgrade. $3.2 million will be spent on Whyala's roads. Council and Borough will partner to upgrade a number of streets across the city. 60 sections will receive much needed upgrades. It follows on from a similar program which upgraded roads in the City Plaza early this year. CEO Chris Cowley says it's a big win for locals.
The residents and ratepayers will be witnessing a dedicated effort to address state of our road network.
Work will begin this month and is expected to be completed in July. Allegations of water theft have been made at irrigators in northwest New South Wales. The state's water watchdog is investigating claims water was pumped during an embargo, leaving local activists disappointed.
More alleged illegal pumping when the water was supposed to be untouched.
What the big problem is our fish are in crisis. That water needs to come down here. It needs to come down here for the river communities as well as the health of the river, of the Darling River.
It's alleged a number of northern irrigators pumped water out of the river as it flowed through the system following weekend rainfall. It is believed the pumping took place in the Namoy Valley. Irrigators are said to have taken water despite being told by the local governing body not to pump due to an embargo in place.
What needs to be implemented is a traffic light system where red's no pumping, amber's pumping for certain classes of licence, and green's anyone pump.
The Natural Resources Access Regulator has reportedly sent staff out to the region to investigate the allegations. It comes not long after an irrigator pleaded guilty to pumping water during an embargo in 2015, in a time when Broken Hill was suffering an extreme water shortage. He was fined just under $200,000, but many believe penalties should be more severe.
These illegal pumpings, the penalties are high enough to deter you from doing. At the moment, it's worth them doing these illegal pumpings because the fines are way less than what they'd make out of the water.
Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, a fight to keep the Whyalla Courthouse open, and Tumby Bay prepares the paintbrushes ahead of its next colourful festival. Hello again. Regional MP Eddie Hughes has written to the State Attorney-General demanding the government rule out closing the Whyalla Courthouse. The local legal fraternity is also concerned about the impact any closure could have on local residents.
The Whyalla Court hears hundreds of cases a month, ranging from drink driving through to preliminary hearings for serious offences. However, last week its future was threatened by government cutbacks.
All agencies have been asked to have a look at what savings or cuts they might be able to make.
Local MP Eddie Hughes has written to Attorney General Vicky Chapman, demanding it's kept open. He says it would make it difficult for people to attend hearings in Port Augusta or Adelaide, especially those facing driving offences.
There might be disqualified. The transport linkages between Port Augusta and Whyalla are poor.
Local lawyer Sarah Minnie says any changes would also affect lawyers, witnesses and even police, who'd have to give up a day's work for travel.
It's going to make the system inefficient and it's going to ultimately cost more.
In a statement, Vicky Chapman says no final decision has been made at this stage, but that's not enough for Mr Hughes, who wants it ruled out completely.
Seek her assurance that the courts in Whyalla will not be closed.
John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
2 community care service providers in Broken Hill have joined forces today. Far West Hack Services has amalgamated with NDIS provider Live Better in a special ceremony in the North Mine Hall.
A new partnership providing big benefits for our community.
Live Better and Far West Hack have very similar values. We're regionally based organisations and hold very similar service provisions.
As reforms sweep through the social services sector, organisations are looking to become more efficient. Over the last year, Live Better and Far West Hack have been working on merging their services to become one organisation under the Live Better banner.
There's value, equal value here for all parties, and more so the community community, and that's what brought us together, and we've been working together for many years.
The partnership covers all of the Far West HAC services, including community transport, modifications and maintenance, and social support. Mr Stanton says those involved with the care provider won't notice much change.
We will not be changing the way services are delivered. This is not about changing the way that we present our services, deliver our services, or accessibility to our services. This is about gaining efficiencies.
Both organisations have the best intentions. They are focused on assisting people living in regional and remote communities to live their best lives.
We know inherently the needs of people living in regional areas and remote areas of Australia are different to those living in metro areas.
Patrick Ryankey, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Business Port Pirie is encouraging local shops to brighten up their storefronts in celebration of the return of the Masters Games this week. 700 athletes from across SA will be participating in the week-long event, and it's hoped the blue and green decorations will help people understand which establishments are Masters Games friendly.
The colours of the Masters Games for businesses to easily identify that they're in support of the Masters Games and welcoming all the visitors that are coming in over that period.
Businesses can pick up a decoration pack from the Federal Hotel on the terrace. Port Lincoln Science in the Pub hosted its 4th gathering last night, with the audience this time learning about the importance of sleep. Professor Sally Ferguson providing strategies and debunking the myths around the topic. Organisers say Science in the Pub is receiving positive feedback and are excited by what's to come.
Really glad with the feedback we're getting, and we really think this will be something going on long term for us in Port Lincoln.
For more information and what's next, visit their Facebook page. It's only a matter of months now until Tumby Bay skaters can practice their latest tricks in town. The first stage of the new skate park is complete, with the concrete foundation poured last week. The next step will see the installation of pipes, ramps and jumps. Tumby Bay's Progress Association teaming up with Variety SA to help fund the construction.
We've been pretty lucky with our grants and things like that. So yeah, it'll be here hopefully, well, certainly by June we'll have a skate park here.
The group's next project is already in the pipeline, with plans to build a public nature play area for children. The countdown is on for this year's Colourtumby Festival, with organisers preparing for the launch next Friday. A dozen local and national artists are set to roll into town for the festival's second colourful event.
It's one of the most colourful events to hit the Eyre Peninsula calendar.
5 international artists, 2 locals, and Soffles, who's an Australian artist but is world famous, so we've got a really amazing lineup.
As the countdown begins, organisers are pulling out all the stops with some unique advertisement ideas. Their latest project, a second-hand Holden van, painted by local artist and chef Josh Harris.
They asked me if I'd be willing to do that for them, and I thought what a great way to start my involvement for the festival this year.
Josh making sure to leave enough space so that everyone can leave their mark.
If we can get all the artists from the festival this year to sign it as they're on their way out of the Eyre Peninsula, I hear a whisper that it may be auctioned off.
We may put it to auction. I'm becoming pretty attached to it myself, but I think we may have to let it go.
Well, you definitely won't miss it. The orange van will be travelling around the festival all weekend, delivering paint supplies to artists. Organisers say this year's event will be one of the biggest to hit Tumby, with Melbourne band Kingswood performing on the Saturday.
I think that's a bit of a coup for us, really. They're a pretty popular band with the Triple J generation. So yeah, that'll be huge on the Saturday night.
Nathan Rector, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. A look into the latest fuel prices at the pump, and we'll have the weather details with Britt. Welcome back. Time now to take a look at how things are shaping up at the petrol bowsers. Here's Patrick with this week's Fuel Watch.
Well, it hasn't been the best week at the local service stations. If prices haven't changed, they've mostly gone up. Starting with unleaded, and Whyalla is the only township to see green, but there hasn't been a significant drop in the price. Port Lincoln is the most expensive after touching $1.47, Broken Hill not too far behind on $1.44. Whyalla and Port Pirie are both averaging $1.43. Port Augusta is a cent cheaper, Kadina is 3 cents cheaper. Adelaide has started its cycle again, jumping from a modest $1.33 to a pricey $1.50. Turning over to diesel now, and majority of places have seen no movement. Port Lincoln is still on $1.51, Whyalla, Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Kadina are all in the high 40s. Broken Hill is the most expensive on the board at $1.53. Adelaide is on $1.48. Finishing off with a quick look at Autogas, and there's a dash of red and some green. Whyalla is paying around 95 cents a litre after seeing a spike. Adelaide is still paying 83 cents, but it's on its way down. The rest of the board has had a quiet week to end March and start April. Now remember, these prices are the regional averages and they do not reflect any one particular outlet. And if you do find a spot that does sell unleaded, auto gas or diesel for cheaper, be sure to let us know on our Facebook page.
Thanks, Pat. And time now to look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Britt.
Thanks, Casey, and good evening. It's been a fine and mostly sunny day. Port Augusta with a top of 31 degrees, Whyalla 30, Port Lincoln 24, Broken Hill 29, Port Pirie 30 and Adelaide 27. A weak trough moved across the far south coast today as a high pressure system moved south of the Bight, heading towards the Tasman tomorrow. On the waters, easterlies tending northeasterly at up to 15 knots with seas at 1 metre, and sunrise is due at 7:32 in the morning. We're headed for another mostly sunny day. Port Augusta 34, Whyalla 32, Port Lincoln 30, Coffin Bay 29, Woodner 35, Corn 32, Broken Hill 31, Port Pirie 32, Clare 31, Cleve 32, Kadina and Adelaide both 31. Looking further ahead now, with strong winds expected on Friday ahead of a fine weekend. Port Lincoln with winds up to 50 kilometres an hour. Much the same for Cleve and Woodner, all looking at tops in the mid-30s on Friday, dropping back to the mid-20s on the weekend. Whyalla windy and 34 on Friday, Saturday 23. Port Augusta remaining sunny, 35 on Friday, Saturday 27. Kadina 33 and windy on Friday, a fine and partly cloudy weekend. Strong winds expected at Port Pirie on Friday, a fine day on Saturday, Clare sunny and 32 on Friday, a partly cloudy weekend, and Broken Hill bright and sunny with maximums sticking in the early 30s. And that's it for Wednesday's weather. Casey, back to you.
Thanks for that, Britt. And that's the local news this Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.